In this video, I want to talk about the patterns that McDavid uses to score this goal. The first one is one that is not super common for a lot of forwards, and that is the backwards crossover. McDavid often uses, and you'll see, especially in neutral zone, how often McDavid will use a backwards crossover. What that does is it's a little bit different. So defenders don't exactly know how to handle these backwards crossovers. Two is it's very efficient. We all know that crossing over is more efficient than a forward stride. So by crossing over, we are more efficient with our striding. Three is that it really creates a lot of deception and a lot of space. It's very easy to judge a player that skates in a straight line. We know that from experience. What we see with McDavid is that as he's crossing over backwards, it's hard to really judge where he's about to go. So that's the first pattern that we see, and we see McDavid using that often, even in scenarios where it seems a little weird to do it. Here he is in the offensive zone doing crossovers backwards. So that's the first thing. Then he uses a nice transition to forward. And then I want to talk about the mechanic stack that he uses to score this goal. So the first stack is, we talked about the backwards crosses. Then what he uses is a outside edge shuffle on his outside edge here. We'll show it from another angle where we'll see that allows him to move laterally around the defender with speed. Then he's going to drag this right foot. We call this a soft drag. That allows him to stay wide and then create lateral movement to the inside, all while staying balanced in his core. Then he uses what we call a Kane drag, which is different than a toe drag, along with stepping onto his outside edge here. Now, why does he do that? Well, because by stepping onto this outside edge here, we notice here that his direction goes like this, but as he steps onto that outside edge, he starts to now move from this direction here to more lateral. This is something that is not unique to McDavid, but unique to very elite players, where they're very, very comfortable on their outside edge, more comfortable on their outside edge than your average NHLer. We see this with the Hughes brothers, we see this with McDavid, we see this with Sidney Crosby, we see this with McKinnon, and this is something that McDavid is truly elite at, being able to step onto this outside edge with confidence, and that allows him to move laterally. Then we see a very slick move. We call this a Kane drag. So a Kane drag is something that Patrick Kane really, I believe, innovated on and perfected in the NHL. A lot of players think a toe drag is where you pull it directly in from the toe. This is a high risk, semi-low reward play. A Kane drag is where you actually use a stick handling movement to pull back with control and then pull it in near your feet. So that's what McDavid does there. You can see he pulls it back, and then he doesn't actually really have to use his toe based on the pathway that he's using. Okay, then he pulls it, and then in one fell swoop, in one motion, he gets it to his backhand, and that surprises the goalie. So I'll show it from a different angle so that you can see. So there's that backwards crossovers we talked about. And then he takes a little step to the inside. We notice that he has Y angle. A lot of players, like I said, he gets on his outside edge here. A lot of players don't step on their outside edge. They think they're on their outside edge, but they're actually completely flat. That has them lose the opportunity to generate free speed by having his center of mass slightly outside of his point of ground contact. He is able to come around, and you can see that he uses the dragging of his toe. What that does is it allows him to tighten up and move laterally here while remaining very balanced here. You'll notice as we back up just how his head remains very stable, and so too does his core remain stable. We talk a lot about how expert movers have proximal stability and distal mobility. What that means is the joints closest to the center of the body move the least, and the ones that are the furthest away move the most. This is the mark of an expert, someone who has an expert motor pattern, and that's what McDavid clearly has. So he's able to make most of his fine control movements with his more distal joints and is able to be more proximal and have more stability with his proximal movements. Okay, so that allows him to stay very balanced. And because he's able to stay balanced, dragging this toe here, keeping it very balanced, his eyes can be up and he can see what his next challenge is or his next defender is doing. I don't know about you, but a lot of times under pressure, especially when I was younger and before practicing these things, I would not really see the distinctions of the defender. I wouldn't see, okay, his toes are faced this way, his stick is faced here, and I wouldn't do that because I was so busy trying to keep my balance. A lot of players are like this. They might be very powerful, but their motor patterns don't have them be balanced like McDavid is. So when you're super balanced, your brain, your eyes can actually take in the information, as in you're always seeing, but your brain can only process so much, and it can only process so much when it's not worried about balance, right? Because what your brain is always going to do is it's always going to prioritize balance over everything else. That's how your cerebellum works, is as soon as you start to go off balance, your cerebellum starts to reprioritize and then shift around your focus to making sure that you have balance. Now, if you are balanced, like McDavid is here, he's very, very balanced. And again, we talked about proximal stability. That allows him to really clearly see that this defender's toes are facing this way, his stick is facing this way, his stick momentum will go that way, allowing McDavid to make a really nice move to totally expose the pointed direction of the defender, which allows him to quickly tuck that puck in behind right in here. And boy, the defender even doesn't give him much space, but it's just enough of an inch to get by, and then combine that movement from, look how far he is on that outside edge, to combine that movement to there. And I'll finish off with just the last thing being on the outside edge. Ask yourself, how comfortable would you be in this position? Would you actually be comfortable doing this at top speed on this outside edge with a ton of pressure? Probably not. Now, is that because McDavid has some sort of innate, unlearnable talent? Well, there's no question. He's an amazing player with amazing talent. The other component is he's done this many times. He's done the reps. So in order for you to feel comfortable here, you need to be able to do reps of this. In order to do the reps of this, you need to know what to call it, as in you need to have a language. If you have a language for it, then you can do the reps. And if you can do the reps, then you can master this in a game, just like McDavid. Now, if you'd like to learn what that is, the key thing here is focusing on what we call the outside edge shuffle. So that is the drill that you'll want to work on in this situation. So those are the mechanic stacks that McDavid has: backwards crossover, followed by a little outside edge, followed by a soft drag, followed by a Kane drag. This is what I was talking about here too, is that he's not actually ever dragging from the toe. It's more to do with his pullback and the direction of it. So I'll show you there. Pull back. And then he really doesn't need to use his toe. Like, yes, it's on the toe, but there's lots of margin for error. It's not just his toe that's on the ice. It's cupped very nicely there. So it allows him to move it with a lot of strength in that tiny little gap. So that's his mechanic stack. You can break down each one of these pieces so you can learn it, get the reps, feel comfortable, and then add it to your game. So thanks for watching, and let's see you practice this.